Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are recapping episode 6 of Gypsy Rose, Life After Lockup. So this episode starts with the Ken interview, and it kind of shows bits and pieces of this interview throughout the episode. So Ken starts off talking about his relationship with Gypsy that they developed while she was in prison, and he makes a comment about how she's not Gypsy Rose Blanchard to him, that she's just Gypsy, which I find really interesting because in one of my last videos I mentioned how Ryan is always calling her by her entire name, like he's kind of a fan of the character and not actually the person that she is. So I just think that it's funny that he said that in this episode. Ken talks about how close he and Gypsy were and the connection that they had, but then we cut back to Gypsy and Ryan. Now this is the next morning after their big fight about Gypsy talking to Mia, her sister, about some personal things, and we talked a lot about that in the last episode. She apparently sent Mia the video she took of Ryan during the fight while he was freaking out a little bit. And Gypsy straight up tells him that she did that she told her sister about the fight. And Ryan just kind of downplays the whole thing like it wasn't that big of a deal. Then we cut to Rod and Christy, who are still on their patio having the same conversation that we've seen stretched out over several episodes now. This time they're talking about Rod feeling like he hasn't had any one-on-one time with Gypsy, and he's a little bit jealous about all of the time that she's spending with everybody else. There was a funny moment in this scene where he calls out Christy for talking over him constantly, which I thought was kind of funny. But they move past that pretty quick, and Rod just explains that he doesn't want to do or say anything that's going to push Gypsy away from him. It's all very delicate, their relationship, because he wasn't involved in a lot of her life. Then we cut back to Gypsy and Ryan, who are at a bouncy house for some reason. It's a really random thing for them to be doing, but it was cute to see them actually like playing and having a good time together. And this is a rare moment where we hear Gypsy talk about the things that she loves about Ryan and why she's with him in the first place. She explains that he understands her emotionally and that he has a compassionate heart. It was kind of good to hear some positive things about Ryan because there's a lot of negative about him in the show so far. And trust me, there is more of it to come in this episode. I don't know if their lack of chemistry is just from being on camera together, but they just have like a lot of awkward moments, it feels like. So it was good to hear some good things about their relationship. However, it doesn't really last very long because while they're sitting down to dinner, they start talking about Ryan's strained relationship between Gypsy's family and himself. Ryan claims to have no issues with Christy or with Mia, but at the same time, he makes a lot of snarky remarks about them, and Gypsy is really quick to call him out on this. I actually really like the way she communicates with him in this conversation. She gives him an example of when she was 13 years old, and she went through a phase of saying really snarky and sarcastic things and then just pretending that she was kidding. And she says that's a fallback, that's an excuse, pointing out to him that this is a way to say whatever you want and not have to take responsibility for it. Ryan seems to understand and agrees to work on this and not be so snarky about her family. But he also says that, he's just fighting for his marriage and he's defending them and that they put their nose in Gypsy and Ryan's business and that's not okay. But I kind of understand why they have so many reservations about Ryan. He comes off very controlling, and they just want to protect Gypsy because she hasn't been out in the real world taking care of herself. So it's really scary to let her just live with this man, not having known what it's like to be free and make her own choices. So this episode is all over the place, so I apologize that we are bouncing from topic to topic here, but the next scene is all about Gypsy's teeth and the fact that she has partial dentures. I'm not completely sure what the whole story with her teeth was. I do know that she had a bunch of teeth extracted when she was a kid, and I know she did have some dental issues. I'm not sure what the extent of them were or what caused them, but her mother Dee Dee was very quick to agree to have all of those teeth pulled. So Gypsy getting her teeth fixed is a really big deal for her. And we get to see that this episode. Later on, we find out that Ryan is very sick and he actually needed to head into the hospital to get a chest x-ray where there were lots of paparazzi somehow waiting to snap pictures of them. This fueled a huge rumor about Gypsy being pregnant. Which is kind of hilarious because right after this episode aired, Gypsy announced something on social media, which we will talk about in another video. This episode is mostly about Gypsy changing her appearance and doing things that will help her feel more confident and become the person that she really wants to be. So we follow her to a plastic surgeon's office where she gets a consultation on getting a nose job. And she talks about how being in the public eye has brought a lot more attention to her features and kind of made her insecurities about her nose worse. Because there are a lot of really cruel people on the internet saying very mean things about her. She gets really excited about the nose job when she sees what the results are going to look like on this mock-up that they have on the computer, which is really quite cool. They were able to show her what her nose is going to look like, and she was thrilled. Now the next scene cuts to a completely different topic once again. Christy and Gypsy are out to lunch and they get on the topic of Ken because of course they do. Gypsy explains to Christy that she flat out told Ryan that she misses Ken, which again is her just being way too honest about her feelings with Ryan. I don't know why on earth she would tell him that, but apparently she said that back in February right before Valentine's Day. She tells Christy about a conversation that she had with Ken right before the wedding, and that was about whether or not she should even get married. And she flat out asked Ken, should I get married or should I wait? And he said, I think you should wait. But because he didn't say, I think you should wait for me, Gypsy went ahead with the wedding. And it's pretty clear in this conversation that if Ken had said to her, please don't get married, I want to be with you, she probably would not have married Ryan. So I think she's feeling a lot of regret over marrying him at this point, but I think she feels obligated to work things out with him. Ken tries to explain why he left Gypsy and that he should have done things differently. He felt like she was codependent on the relationship and it wasn't healthy, and that she needed the freedom to grow as a person. I gotta tell you, Ken comes off a little bit sassy in this interview. Like he's a little bit ticked off at Gypsy is what it feels like. He talks about how he has a lot of love for her and he wants her to be happy. He does say that he was not supportive of the wedding, and he made sure to point out that he had a conversation with her beforehand and after they got married. So they were in communication before she was released, but he did say that he had not spoken to her since she was released from prison. Now, cut back to Gypsy and Ryan. They're talking about all of the changes that Gypsy is making to her appearance. He says, you're getting your teeth fixed, you're getting your nose done, you're getting your hair dyed. Which, by the way, she tells him that she wants to dye her hair blonde. And in the last episode, she literally said that Ken has a thing for blondes. So I can kind of see why he would be so insecure about her dyeing her hair blonde, but he does make a really big deal about all these changes, and you can see that he's really worried and insecure about it. He's like, man, you're not even going to be my wife anymore. And she's like, I'm still going to be your wife. So again, like I said in the last video, he comes off really insecure and really worried about Gypsy leaving him, but at the same time, she gives him a lot of reason to think that. But I think it's really sad that he doesn't want her to make all these changes because there are things that are going to help her feel more confident and make her happy. So when she walks in the door after hitting the salon and she has new teeth and new hair, at first he acts all turned on, which is just makes me feel icky. But he keeps telling her how good she looks and making little noises and kissing her. It's a little over the top, but then he slowly starts changing his attitude. Maybe not attitude. He just he starts getting passive aggressive, I feel like. So he starts talking about how different she looks. Man, you look so different now. Wow. And then he says, you look like a different person now. Then he starts asking her if she missed him while she was getting her hair done. And then he asks who she showed pictures to of her new hair, who saw these pictures before him. The whole conversation started to get really uncomfortable. And then finally he goes, oh yeah, did they like it? Did your boyfriend like it? And it's just, I'm laughing, but it's so sad because you see her face like fall. She just was really happy about her hair, but you can kind of see her starting to get what he's hinting at. And then when he says the boyfriend comment, she just kind of like looks down and doesn't really say anything. You can tell that she's bothered and annoyed by him saying that. He goes, oh, I'm just joking. Ugh. And he already said that he wouldn't do that anymore. Ugh. He just took something that made her really happy and just like crapped all over it. So it's no surprise that Gypsy decides to go and visit her dad and her family without Ryan, mainly so that she can spend some one-on-one time with her dad. Ryan tells us that it was hard for him to let her go, and he says, I can't be controlling. I can't do that to her. And it's just wild to hear how much he's struggling to not be controlling. To let her go visit her family for a weekend is like a true struggle for him. Like, he's afraid to have her out of his sight. The good news is Gypsy had a great time with her dad, which I absolutely love. Rod is the coolest person on the show. I love him so much. And it makes me really sad that he wasn't in her life as much as he should have been. He was very young when he had Gypsy, and I think that Dee Dee just kind of took charge and took Gypsy away, moved her around a lot, moved her out of state. She just made it incredibly hard for him to be involved. And while on the one hand, I understand that, and I mean, you know, he thought that he had a very sickly child and that the mom, you know, was the one who knew what to do and was doing a great job. So I can kind of understand that. On the other hand, there's a part of me that doesn't want to forgive him for not trying harder to be in her life. But watching him in this show, he's just so nice and normal and like down to earth and level-headed, and he's really funny and fun, and he has such a great time hanging out with Gypsy. He took her crabbing, he taught her how to catch crabs, teased her a little bit, they joked around, he taught her how to play on the guitar, he even gave her a bike riding lesson, and he was really excited and happy to do all of these things, and it was just really nice to see. So at the end of the night, Gypsy calls Ryan on the phone just to tell him how the day went and what she was doing with her dad, and Ryan does not seem like he cares literally at all. He asks her for a video chat and she's like, no, I don't feel like it. And then goes on talking about her day. And he's just kind of like, yeah, that's great. And he doesn't sound interested really at all. And then he comments on how good she looks in the pictures that she sent to him, which just gives me an icky vibe. I just know where he's going with this. And he's like, you look so good. And then he goes, I still can't get a video call though. And she's like, I'll video chat with you later. I don't feel like it right now. And he asks if there's someone there that she doesn't want him to see. Can y'all tell I've been in relationships like this? The way that it just makes me so angry. And she, of course, gets annoyed. And I don't know, I hope that he's watching this back now and realizing how much he was pushing her away by doing that kind of thing. When you are constantly accusing somebody of looking at other people, cheating, talking to people they're not supposed to, when you're so untrusting of your partner and making them feel like everything that they do for themselves is really to attract somebody else, like it's just a way to push that person farther and farther away from you. And I really hope that he is seeing that mistake. You know, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more he would accuse her of wanting to be with Ken, the more she wanted to be with Ken. That's my take on it. Because here she is just trying to tell him about her day and the bonding that she's doing with her dad. And all he cares about is, you know, who's there? What are you doing? Who are you talking to? It's so annoying. And it's so obvious how insecure he is in the relationship. And that's where this episode ends. In the sneak peek of next week's episode, we see more joking texts between Gypsy and Ryan, where he's talking about how he doesn't care about her one-on-one time with her dad and that he just wants to love on her. And of course she shows those texts to her whole family, and it makes them not like Ryan even more. We'll also see an argument between Gypsy and Ryan about her social media accounts, because in this episode, she actually talks to her dad about wanting to delete her Instagram and her millions of followers that she has accumulated. And Ryan does not want her to do this because that's money. There's a lot of money to be made in social media, and when you have that big of a following, you can make a whole career out of it. And so he's like, you don't want to do that. That's revenue, honey. And she gets really upset because it seems like he cares more about the money than what's good for her. I think this next episode is really going to be where their relationship breaks down. So I'll be back to recap that episode next week. Make sure that you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss that video. Thanks so much for watching today, guys. I will see you in the next one. Take care.